they could possibly scratch together was $22,000. So I put $4,000 into the pot myself, bringing the total to $500 over the Kendall offer, and hastily declared the collection sold. Of course, my getting into it meant that much less for everybody else, but 5/6 of a collection is better than no pistols at all. I imagine Colin MacBride is honing up his ski-on-do for me because I got that big Whitneyville Walker Colt. But what the hell? He got the cased pair of Patterson .34s and the Texas .40 with the ramming lever." "Why, I think the division was fair enough," Gladys said. "They'd agreed to take your valuation, hadn't they? And all that slide rule and comptometer business." "But Jeff, $4,000?" she queried. "You only got $5 from me, and you can't run a detective agency on old pistols." Rand grinned as he set down his empty glass. Gladys refilled it from the shaker. "My dear lady, that $5,000 I unblushingly accepted from you was only part of it," he confessed. "There was also a fee of $3,000 from Stephen Gresham for pulling the bloodhounds of the DA's office off his back in the matter of Arnold Rivers, and there was $5,000 from Humphrey Goode, which I suppose he'll get the Premix Company to repay him, for engineering the suppression of a lot of facts he wanted suppressed. And finally, my connection with this business brought that merger to my attention, and I picked up 100 shares of Premix at 73 1/4. And now I have 200 shares of Millpack worth about $29,000, which I can report for my income taxes as capital gains. I'd say I could afford to treat myself to a few old pistols for my collection." "Well!" She raised both eyebrows over that. "Don't anybody tell me crime doesn't pay." "Yes. In my ghoulish way, I generally manage to bear myself in mind, on an operation like this. I make no secret of my affection for money." He lifted his glass and sipped slowly. "Look here, Gladys, are you satisfied with the way this was handled?" She shrugged. "I should be. When I started out as Lane's blood avenger, I suppose I expected things to end somewhere out of sight, in a nice antiseptic death chamber at the State Penitentiary. You must admit that that business in the library was really bringing it home. There's no question that you got the man who killed Lane, and if you hadn't, I'd never have been at peace with myself. And I suppose all that chicanery afterward was necessary, too." "It was, if you wanted that merger to go through, and unless you wanted to see the bottom drop out of your Premix stock," Rand assured her. "If the true facts of Mr. Fleming's death had gotten out, there'd have been a simply hideous stink. The Millpack people would have backed out of that merger like a bear out of an active bee tree. You know what the situation really was, don't you?" She shook her head. "I know Millpack wanted to get control of the Premix Company, and Lane refused to go in with them. I don't fully understand his reasons, though." "They weren't important. They were mainly verbal, and unrelated to actuality," Rand said. "The important thing is that he did refuse, and Millpack wanted that merger so badly that it could be tasted in every ounce of food they sold. They got Stephen Gresham to negotiate it for them, and he was just on the point of reporting it to be an impossibility when Fred Dunmore came to him with a proposition. Dunmore said he thought he could persuade or force Mr. Fleming to consent, and he wanted a contract guaranteeing him a vice presidency with Millpack, at $40,000 a year, if and when the merger was accomplished. The contract was duly signed about the 1st of last November." "Oh, good Lord!" Gladys Fleming's eyes widened. "When did you hear about that?" "I got that out of Gresham a couple of days after the blow-up, when it was too late to be of any use to me," Rand said. "If I'd known it from the beginning, it might have saved me some work. Not much, though. Gresham was just as badly scared about the facts coming out as Goode was. I can't prove collusion between him and Goode, but Gresham was helping spread the suicide story, too." "Nice friends Lane had. But didn't anybody think there was something odd about that accident, immediately after that contract was signed?" "Of course they did, but try and get them to admit it, even to themselves. Nobody likes to think that the new vice president of the company murdered his way into the position. So everybody assumed the attitudes of the three Japanese monkeys. and made respectable noises about what a great loss Mr. Fleming was to the business world, and how lucky Dunmore was that he had that contract. She looked at him inquiringly for a moment. "Jeff, I want you to tell me exactly how everything happened," she said. "I think I have a right to know." "Yes, you have," he agreed. "I'll tell you the whole thing, what I actually know and what I was forced to guess at. When this merger idea first took shape last summer, Dunmore saw how unalterably opposed to it Mr. Fleming was, and he began wishing him out of the way. Some time later, he decided to do something about it. I suppose Anton Varcek gave him the idea in the first place, with his jabber about the danger of a firearms accident. Dunmore decided he'd fix one up for Mr. Fleming. First of all, he'd need a firearm, collector's type, and in good working condition. And in good working order. It couldn't be one of the guns in the collection. He'd have to keep it loaded all the time, waiting for an opportunity to use it. He couldn't take a weapon out of the collection because it would be missed, and he couldn't load one and hang it up again, because that would be discovered. So he had to get one of his own, and he got it from Arnold Rivers. "You know that? I mean, that's not just a guess?" "I know it. The gun he got from Rivers was a .36 Colt, 1860 Navy model, serial number 2444, Rand told her. Rivers had that gun last summer. He had it refinished by a gunsmith named Umholtz. After Umholtz refinished it, the gun was in Rivers' shop until November of last year, when it was sold by Rivers personally. And that was the revolver that was found in Lane Fleming's hand, and the one I got from the coroner, with a letter vouching for the fact that it had been so found." He finished his cocktail. Gladys picked up the shaker mechanically and refilled his glass. "Now, we have Dunmore with his .36 Colt, loaded with powder, caps and bullets from the ammunition supply in the gunroom, waiting for a chance to use it. And also, he has this mill-pack contract in his safe deposit box at the bank. That takes care of the weapon and the motive. Only the opportunity is needed, and that came on the 22nd of December, when Mr. Fleming brought home that Confederate Leech & Rigdon .36 he had just bought. It was just a piece of luck that both revolvers were alike in caliber and general type, but it wouldn't have made a lot of difference. Nobody was paying much attention to details, and Dunmore was on the scene to misdirect any attention anybody would pay to anything. Now we come to the mechanics of the thing, the modus operandi, or, as it is professionally known, the M.O. You remember what happened that evening. Nelda had gone out. You and Geraldine were listening to the radio in the parlor over there. Varcek had gone up to his lab. Mr. Fleming was alone in the gunroom working on his new revolver, and Fred Dunmore said he was going to take a bath. What he did, of course, was to draw a tub full of water, undress, put on his bathrobe and slippers, hide the .36 Colt under the bathrobe, and then go across the hall to the gunroom, where he found Mr. Fleming sitting on that cobbler's bench, putting the finishing touches on the Leech & Rigdon. So he fired at close range, wiped the prints off the Colt with an oily rag, put it in Lane Fleming's right hand, put the rag in his left, grabbed up the Leech & Rigdon, and scuttled back to his bathroom, deadlatching and shutting the gunroom door as he went out. This last, of course, was a delaying tactic to give him time to establish his bathtub alibi. He lifted the cocktail glass to his lips. These vodka martinis were strong, and 3 of them before dinner was leaning way over backward, maintaining the tradition of the hard-drinking private eye. But Gladys was working on her 3rd, and no client was going to drink him under. So, in the privacy of his bathroom, he kicked out of his slippers, threw off his robe, hid the Leech & Rigdon, probably in a space between the tub and the wall that I found while we were searching the house the night before the shooting of Dunmore, and jumped into the tub there to await developments. As soon as he heard Varcek's uproar in the hall, he could emerge, dripping bathwater and innocence, to find out what the fuss was all about. "Do you know anything about something called General Semantics?" he asked suddenly. "Yes, before I married Lane, I went around with a radio ad writer," she told him. "He was a nice boy, but he'd get drunker than a boiled owl about once a month, and weep about his crimes against sanity and meaning. He'd recite long excerpts from his